It starts with this guy named Jang-yuk, who's a bit on the heavy side but just landed a steady job as an engineer. Jang-yuk is currently in the hospital dealing with hepatitis B, a sickness that spreads through body fluids, not through the air. His folks came to see him once, but they kept their distance because they didn't want to catch what he had. Same story with his pals and colleagues. No one dropped by, they just texted him to ask how he was doing. Even the other patients sharing his hospital room were steering clear of him. They asked the nurse to close the curtains around Jang-yuk's bed because they were afraid of catching his illness. It was like he had a force field around him. But there's a ray of sunshine in this story. There's this nurse named Dae-yeon who takes care of Jang-yuk without any fear. She ignores all the warnings from others. She goes the extra mile, giving his IV bag a kiss for good luck and being super friendly to cheer him up and help him get better. So one night, Jang-yuk sneaks out of his room and strolls down the hospital corridor. He bumps into Dae-yeon, and she's having a smoke under the stairs. Jang-yuk notices a ring on her finger and assumes she's married, but she sets the record straight and tells him it's actually a graduation ring. Then, she drops a bit of truth. She's not as lucky as Jang-yuk with his stable job. Dae-yeon's just a contract worker, grinding through long shifts. She confesses that she's been stressed and tired lately, which is why she picked up smoking. But just when they're having a chat, the head nurse shows up and catches them red-handed. She gives Dae-yeon an earful for smoking in the hospital. Quick thinker that she is, Dae-yeon pretends the cigarettes belong to Jang-yuk and gives him a scolding before walking away. The next day, Dae-yeon goes to see Jang-yuk to say sorry and thank him for what happened the night before. She grabs some food from his plate and chows down, and Jang-yuk doesn't mind one bit. As she's about to leave the hospital room, Dae-yeon tells the other patients not to make fun of or hassle Jang-yuk just because he's sick. Later that night, Dae-yeon swings by to check on Jang-yuk, but she's so worn out that she ends up dozing off at his bedside. She's been feeling even more tired ever since she decided to quit drinking coffee and smoking. Seeing how stressed and tired Dae-yeon looks, Jang-yuk steps up to help her out. He leaves her encouraging notes, treats her to tasty meals, saves her a spot on his bed to rest, and makes sure to wake her up before anyone else catches on. They'd often take walks down the hallway and have heart-to-heart chats to keep stress at bay. Dae-yeon is super thankful for all the kindness Jang-yuk shows her, and she puts a cute love sticker on his bandage as a sign of appreciation. But she doesn't want anyone else to know how close they've become, so when Jang-yuk's with the doctor or other nurses, she acts like she doesn't even know him. A few days later, Jang-yuk gets the good news that he's fully recovered, and the doctor says he can head home. But that also means he won't be seeing Dae-yeon anymore, which makes him pretty sad. On his last night at the hospital, Jang-yuk plans to give Dae-yeon a flower as a little gift. But when it's time, the nurse on duty is the head nurse, not Dae-yeon. The next day, Dae-yeon doesn't show up at the hospital either, so Jang-yuk heads home feeling frustrated. While having dinner with his buddies, they suggest that maybe Dae-yeon was just a figment of his imagination because of his illness. But Jang-yuk is convinced she's real and not some dream. He decides to go back to the hospital to find her but comes up empty-handed. So he sneaks a peek at the hospital's phone records and tries to remember Dae-yeon's number. The head nurse catches him off guard, but after some trial and error, he manages to dial the right number and Dae-yeon answers. Turns out Dae-yeon had to take some time off because she wasn't feeling well. Jang-yuk is relieved that she wasn't ignoring him and confesses that he likes her. Dae-yeon invites him over to her apartment, and Jang-yuk rushes there in his dad's car. At first, things are a bit awkward between them, but they start chatting and Dae-yeon asks Jang-yuk to stay over because she's feeling lonely. The next morning, Jang-yuk is changing light bulbs and making breakfast for her. His kindness and attention make Dae-yeon so happy that she can't help but cry tears of joy. And then she kisses him. So after all those sweet moments, Jang-yuk and Dae-yeon's bond gets even stronger. They hang out a lot, and Jang-yuk becomes super thoughtful. He sends food to Dae-yeon while she's at work and picks her up when she's done, which makes her co-workers a bit jealous of all the attention he's giving her. One day, Jang-yuk notices that Dae-yeon isn't wearing her ring, and she tells him she lost it. Then, Dae-yeon wins a vacation ticket to Jeju Island for two and invites Jang-yuk to join her, and he happily agrees. They go shopping together, and when they decide to get matching couple t-shirts, Jang-yuk gets annoyed because the shirt is too small for him. It puts him in a bad mood, but Dae-yeon tries to cheer him up. Finally, the big day comes, and Dae-yeon is eagerly waiting for Jang-yuk at the airport. He rushes in, and she's thrilled he's arrived. Dae-un surprises him with a pair of sneakers, 2 sets of shoes so they can match. Jang-yuk is over the moon with the gift and decides to shed some pounds by working out in those sneakers. Next thing you know, we see a fit and athletic Jang-yuk jogging in the morning. They start living together, and he always makes breakfast for Dae-un before heading to work. But then, his boss drops some news. Jang-yuk is getting a promotion but will be transferred to the company's headquarters in Seoul. He tells Dae-un about it, and they continue chatting in the hospital cafeteria. Suddenly, a bunch of nurses show up, and Dae-un quickly asks Jang-yuk to leave because she wants to keep their relationship on the down low with her coworkers. One day, Jang-yuk picks up Dae-un in his fancy new car and tells her that he's been shuttling back and forth between Seoul and Incheon just to be with her. Then, he surprises her with a ring, slipping it onto her finger. Now, Jang-yuk starts his new job at headquarters in Seoul, but there's another person, Bo-young, who's also gunning for that promotion. She's super competitive and keeps trying to make Jang-yuk look bad in front of their boss. One time, Jang-yuk buys coffee for everyone at work, including the boss, but Bo-young swoops in and hands it out like she's the hero who got the coffee. She even gives Jang-yuk a task that's all wrong on purpose, so he gets scolded by the boss. When Jang-yuk gets back home, he vents to Dae-un about how tough work has been and all the problems Bo-young's causing. He doesn't even give her a chance to talk and tells her to plan a vacation to Jeju Island. But here's where the tables turn. When it's Bo-young's turn to present her work, Jang-yuk points out that her design is risky and could make a bridge collapse. Their boss asks Bo-young to come up with a new plan. So now, Jang-yuk can leave work early while Bo-young has to stay late to fix her stuff. The downside is the long trips between Seoul and Incheon, where Jang-yuk out big time. He's always tired and falls asleep as soon as he talks to Dae-un because he's just so exhausted. The next morning, Jang-yuk can't find Dae-un because she left for work early. They talk on the phone and decide that Jang-yuk should rent an apartment in Seoul and visit Dae-un on weekends. That way he won't be so tired and can be more into his work. Now, Bo-young's work situation is going downhill. She's staying late at work and not taking care of herself, so she looks all pale and messy. Jang-yuk suggests she shouldn't eat too much during those late nights. But Bo-young gets all irritated and tells him she's stressed because he's always commenting on her work, which slows her down. Feeling guilty, Jang-yuk decides to stay late to help Bo-young with her work. He doesn't realize that Dae-un texted him, asking if he'd come to visit. The next day, Jang-yuk and Bo-young present their project design, and their boss is pretty pleased with their performance. So, they celebrate with dinner and drinks with their coworkers. Jang-yuk can't join in the drinking fun because of his health. Finally, late at night, Jang-yuk makes it to Dae-un's apartment, but she's not there. She's working the night shift, and she asks him to change a light bulb, but he dozes off and forgets all about it. The next day, Jang-yuk and Bo-young get a pat on the back from their boss for teaming up and designing a great project. After that, they start working together on more projects. But hey, they're cool with it because they know each other well by now. Jang-yuk often stays late at work with Bo-young and ends up canceling plans with Dae-un. They hardly see each other, and Dae-un gets super frustrated because she has something important to tell Jang-yuk, but it keeps getting delayed because he's always busy. Long story short, Jang-yuk and Bo-young nail another project together, so he invites her to celebrate with dinner. While they're out, Dae-un calls Jang-yuk to check on him, but he fibs and says he's working late and can't see her. Then, one night, Bo-young tries to make a move on Jang-yuk, but he thinks about Dae-un and decides to go see her. When he gets to Dae-un's place, he finds a pile of trash at the door. Dae-un's upset because he didn't fix the broken light bulb or take out the trash. They start arguing, and that's when Dae-un drops a bomb. She hasn't had her period and believes she's expecting his child. But instead of being happy, Jang-yuk looks even more frustrated because he's not ready for fatherhood and marriage right now. The next day, Jang-yuk decides to skip work and takes Dae-un to the clinic for her checkup. She's happy that he's with her all day for the doctor's visit. Since Jang-yuk keeps getting calls and messages from his office, Dae-un tells him to go back to work. But Jang-yuk starts being more considerate of Dae-un. He texts her often to check on how she's doing and doesn't work overtime as much. He even goes back to driving between Seoul and Incheon just to be with her. But because of that, his job performance suffers. He's late and falls asleep while working. Bo-young calls Jang-yuk out on this and tells him that their work is getting affected. So Jang-yuk decides to go back to working late with Bo-young and leaves Dae-un alone at home. One night, they go shopping together, but Jang-yuk doesn't seem interested and keeps complaining about the crowds. He just wants to eat and head home soon. In the car, Daeun calls him out on his attitude and how he's trying to avoid her. Jang-yuk denies it but slips up, accidentally calling her my pretty Bo-young. Daeun gets furious, thinking he's having an affair. They have a big fight, and that's when Daeun drops a bombshell. She had an abortion. Jang-yuk says he doesn't care because he never wanted the baby in the first place. After dropping Daeun off at home, Jang-yuk heads back to Seoul all angry. The next day, Jang-yuk's engagement ring finally arrives, but he puts it in a pencil case at his office instead of giving it to Daeun. Jang-yuk and Bo-young keep working late together, and with all that time spent together, some romantic tension starts to build up. Jang-yuk ends up kissing Bo-young, and things get romantic between them. But after a while, Jang-yuk starts feeling restless and starts missing Daeun again. Then he gets a text from a travel agent confirming his trip to Jeju Island. He texts Daeun, telling her she can use her flight ticket to Jeju with someone else. However, he can't stop thinking about her when he notices her profile picture still says Daeun loves Jang-yuk. When both Bo-young and Jang-yuk fail to secure permanent positions at their company, Jang-yuk tells Bo-young over dinner with their co-workers that he's going back to his old job in Incheon. Bo-young shares her plan to continue her education abroad. Jang-yuk feels sad about parting ways with Bo-young. He then checks Daeun's profile picture and sees it's changed to Christmas in Jeju. That's when Jang-yuk decides he wants to win back Daeun's love and takes the engagement ring he meant for her. So their flight to Jeju Island happened that very night, and Jang-yuk realizes he still loves Daeun and rushes to the airport in a taxi. When he gets there, he spots Daeun waiting on the sidewalk in front of the airport. He jumps out of the taxi, and as he's about to reach her, he accidentally bumps into a guy and falls down. Turns out the guy he bumped into is the chubby Jang-yuk we saw at the beginning of the film, and his full name is Lee Jang-yuk. It turns out Lee Jang-yuk and Jang-yuk from the main part of the film are different people. Daeun met Lee Jang-yuk about 2 years ago when he had an accident and had to be hospitalized. She took care of him, and their relationship grew closer. Daeun gave him a pair of sneakers similar to the ones she gave to Jang-yuk. They became romantically involved and lived together. But when Jang-yuk moved to Seoul for work and started spending less time with her, Daeun met Lee Jang-yuk, who has hepatitis B and found comfort in his company. The two storylines happen at the same time. Daeun gets more attached to Lee Jang-yuk because she feels neglected by her partner, Jang-yuk. Lee Jang-yuk can do all the things Jang-yuk can't, like changing a light bulb. Daeun's pregnancy is why she feels tired and sleepy while working at the hospital. Lee Jang-yuk is super considerate of her, and she gradually becomes more comfortable with him. After ending her relationship with Jang-yuk, Daeun takes off her ring and confesses to Lee Jang-yuk that it's gone. So back at the airport, Daeun decides to help Lee Jang-yuk instead of her ex-boyfriend, ignoring Jang-yuk's shouts. Daeun and Lee Jang-yuk head off to Jeju Island, while Jang-yuk decides to go back to the party and meet Bo-young. Now, Bo-young tells Jang-yuk that she just won a Christmas trip to Jeju Island, and they can go together. Jang-yuk then tells Bo-young that he loves her, but deep down, he still loves Daeun, and that's how the film ends. So the moral of the story is if you're going to change light bulbs, make sure you're not also changing partners.